Tonight we changed our format up a bit the last 3 meetings or so, where we have this evening an opportunity to have a panel of local folks who can give us a perspective on what's going on with agriculture in the area, and then we obviously later on this week or tomorrow have tours and other things. So with that, though, since there's just a few of us here, I think it might be nice to go around the room. And also, we do have 2 new board members joining us today. And so, you'll have a chance to state a few more things tomorrow when we start the full board meeting. But let's at least start. Kirk is one of our new board members, so just a couple words, Kirk.
Kirk Mogg from Portland. Kirk Mogg from Portland. Glad to be here.
Barbara Boyer. I sit here today as the chair of the Soil and Water Conservation Commission.
All right, another new board member.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Mike Dill. I live in Philomath, Oregon, and I represent an organically grown company based out of Portland and Eugene, Oregon.
I'm Chad Allen. I'm a dairyman in Tillamook.
I'm Josh Zielinski. I'm a nurseryman in Salem.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Sharplow Hansen, and I serve as the director of the Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Great. And why don't we go around the room, starting over here at the very end in black. Hello.
Katie, and I'm Lisa's
Okay.
daughter.
Katie, hi. Maybe my contacts aren't working tonight. So. Go ahead.
Rusty Grunt, Department of Ag.
Shiloh Semrell, Department of Ag, Water Quality Specialist.
Bill Miller.
Farmer Umpqua.
I'm Wade Bingham, and I'm a farmer here in the valley.
Paul Andrews, Union County Commissioner.
Jake Siegert, Union County Commissioner.
Susanna Moore, Eastern Oregon University in the Office of University Advancement.
See, Carla?
Sherry Goodnight, Department of Agriculture.
Great, thank you, and welcome everybody. Each year we have a set of resolutions. In fact, we've got 27 active resolutions that the board has that really are policy statements of what we believe and what we think about and deal with on various subjects that are important to agriculture. And I mention that and I think we'll mention that at every industry panel and visitor panel that we have, because those resolutions, they are up for review. We review about 8 to 10 each year to make sure that they're current, to make sure they make sense. And from our perspective, to have interested parties provide us comment on those resolutions is really an important piece of that. And so we allow comment period time during the meetings, of course, but also have the resolutions out in draft form in advance of meetings for additional comment that can be submitted. So we also have some folks joining us online. So can we go around the room, go ahead and get started with folks joining us with introductions?
I think it's Lindsay and Andrea.
I couldn't know who else was on there. Lindsay, why don't you get started?
Lindsay Ang, Oregon Department of Agriculture, joining virtually this week.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Andrea?
Good afternoon. This is Andrea Cantu-Shomas, Communications Director, and I am headed your way, so I should be there for the rest of the week as well.
Great. And we've got a TR and a KA. KA.
TR is.
And TR. We're good. Okay, we're covered. Excellent. All right. Thank you. And Casey just joined us. Casey, quick introduction.
Casey France, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
All right. Thank you, Casey. Okay. This meeting, we will be reviewing, as I talked about, those board resolutions on Friday for finalization. And tonight we have a select panel of folks that we have invited, and we really wanted to hear from our county commissioners in the area. And we'll go ahead and start off with, in fact, if maybe we'll just come up one at a time would be fine. But Paul, is it Andrus? Andrus, yeah, from Union County is joining us as our first presenter. Commissioner.
Madam Chairs, members of the board, first of all, welcome to Union County. This has been my home for better part of 30 years. I retired 7 years ago as a high school agriculture, natural resource, and FFA advisor. 23 years here at LaGrande High School, and I started my career in Malheur County in Adrian, and enjoyed every minute of it, but I also enjoy being a county commissioner as well. And I'm so glad that you're here, and I welcome you. How are you?
Good. I found the hall, sorry.
All right, so maybe we can have then all the commissioners. So you then, Christina?
Christina.
Okay,
Baker County
great.
Commissioner.
Good, excellent. So do we have any other commissioners here? We had one other invited. No.
It's just the two.
Okay, great. Okay, so let's go ahead and why don't you do an intro if you could, Commissioner Witham, and then we can start into kind of your perspective on the issues facing you in these counties.
Okay, I missed Paul's introduction, but Christina Witham, I came into office in 2023. And I focus on most natural resource issues and projects in Baker County.
Great. Okay.
I don't know what else you want to know.
I think that for intro, and so I don't know which one of you wants to kind of spearhead and start off and talking about the issues. All right. Paul, why don't you get started?
Thank you. I would be shocked if you didn't know what the first issue is that I'm going to mention, and that is wolves and their effect in relationship to the ranchers in Northeast Oregon, ranchers and shepherds in Northeast Oregon. Union County had the dubious honor just about a year ago to surpass Wallowa County in total number of wolves, and to include that 6 of the first tranche of wolves that were shipped to Colorado came from Union County, and the others were not far from Union County in the Baker line, if I understand it correctly. I'm very thankful that the last couple days, wolf compensation, Senate Bill 777, passed. The House side, just prior to coming over here, I got an email notification that the Senate President and the Speaker of the House both signed, so it's on the way to the governor's desk. The caution that I would like to explain is that that does not include the financial portion of it, which is in Ways and Means, and if anybody understands the Ways and Means process, I would love to learn about that, because after 7 years, I still don't understand how it works. Union County is got a fair number of cattle and calves. Approximately 7% or 27% of our production comes from cattle and calves. We're a county of give or take 27,000 citizens, and agriculture, timber, education is big in our community, as is some manufacturing, not only the milling, but also recreational vehicle construction. We've got NASH and outdoor RV that are in our communities. I want to make sure I get this right. In Union County, 93,000 acres are under irrigation. A majority of that is through sprinkler. We have a little bit that is gravity, but most of it's either hand line, pivots, linears, and wheel lines. We also are home to the deepest well in the state of Oregon, and I called to make sure that I had my numbers right this afternoon, and that well is just over 4,000 feet deep. And the gentleman that put that in wanted to make sure that he had water, call it in perpetuity. Interestingly enough, he's used it quite a little bit for recharge. He's pumping water back in rather than pumping it out. We've got small grains, and these numbers are a couple years old, and I apologize for that. We've got small grains that are about 25,000 acres, hay at about 36,000 acres, turf grass and native seed production, 15,000 acres, and this is the one that's probably the least accurate of all that are in here, and that's peppermint oil, and that portion of the industry has really moved on. There is still some mint production here, but not a terrible amount, large amount of it. We've got still have a small acreage in comparison to what we had in sweet cherries. Sunflower seeds are very common now, as is camelina and canola, both those. We've got some dry beans, we've got soybeans, and it seems like I'm missing something, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. And the grass seed makes up about 17% of our total production, and we ship it all over the world.
Great.
Questions?
Actually, I've got a question on the mint production. Why not anymore here? Or the market,
verticillium wilt.
Yeah,
Oh,
verticillium wilt.
verticillium.
I didn't want to speak out of turn.
Okay.
Yeah, the fields are the production takes a nosedive, and it no longer becomes viable.
Okay. And so just where has it moved to? I mean, what's the biggest mint producing area now? I mean, Washington produced some too, right?
We started producing it here about 30 years ago. Madras was the biggest, and they got verticillium wilt and lost production. And so for a time, we were the biggest producer in all of Oregon, and now it's kind of moved to Idaho. And so what they're finding with that disease is it just needs to move to areas that doesn't have it, because once it's in the soil, we could start growing mint here in 10 years and still have verticillium wilt problems.
Great. Thank you.
Barbara Boyer for the record. That well you spoke of, is that privately owned?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
And I am not going to tell you the temperature because I don't want to misquote, but it comes out of the ground in what I would consider hot, especially from that depth.
Commissioner Andrus, you've done a really nice job about talking about agriculture. What are some of the other community issues? Because this is a rural Oregon community that you're facing in this area.
Thank you for the question. I get on my soapbox. I maintain that we really struggle with having people that we can hire. Many businesses in town and across the county and the smaller towns has a lot of help wanted signs. If by some stroke of good luck is what I would call it, that you can hire someone that's qualified, housing becomes an issue, and I would almost call it a miracle at this point if you've got those two boxes checked. The third is childcare, and really struggle with childcare. We are considered a child care desert here, and COVID only exacerbated that. I'm working with a nonprofit here on campus to try to solve part of that problem, and the more I dig, it seems the worse it gets for numbers and data on it. But it's troubling the number of people that we have that are either not in the workforce or temporarily or sometimes permanently leaving the workforce because they have no child care. I hope that answered your question.
I'll just do a follow-up on the child care front. Is there even a Boys and Girls Club anywhere in the vicinity here? And certainly childcare for earlier, but at least that's a supplemental for part of the day.
We don't have one that I would categorize it in that manner, but we do have some child care facilities that go early and late. One of the things that we found as I've been working on this project is that, and not having lived it, is the I would call it shift work. So you're talking about the people that work in dispatch, sheriff's department, hospital, any fire department need really 24-hour childcare, and that's one of the biggest places we lack childcare.
Yeah. I'm working on one in Riddle, Oregon, to build a facility because you have to have an infrastructure of some kind and then to be able to go from there and then have the interest to do that. But I think all of rural America is suffering tremendously with that issue right now. So.
And one of the things, again, that we found is that there, and I don't want to say it's easy by any means, but there is a lot of avenues in which to fund a facility. USDA rural development grants, community initiated projects, which used to be called earmarks or congressional directed spending, where we're finding that we're really cautious about taking that step is the day-to-day operations and make sure that it's sustainable and long-term. And I think you've probably been to the Port of Morro and seen their operations. I had a conversation with their director, and they're struggling with that same thing. And that's, I would call it well supported by industry there. But it's, I mean, you can't, it's not economically feasible for working people to afford childcare at the rate that it takes to operate it, especially under Oregon's weighty regulations. And if there was some way that we could get some of the red tape cut. I mean, no one's suggesting that we get rid of all the rules, but it's become oppressive, the rules governing that. And we are talking about our most precious asset, probably even more so than water or agriculture or timber or natural resources. I mean, this is our children, and no one's even suggesting that we get rid of all the rules, but it has become really, really burdensome.
Maybe we can go into that later if we have to. I don't know too much about
a couple days to go through that.
We had a couple of additional board members join us. Could you do just a quick say hello, who you are, introduction?
Good evening. Sorry I'm late. Eric Orem. I'm from Heppner, board member.
I have a feeling you were kind of working up to the last minute.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Yes, I was.
Right.
Chair, Miguel Lopez, producer. I literally just drove onto campus from Carlton in the Valley.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Well, why don't we move on? There's probably going to be some other questions as we go in other areas, but Commissioner Witham?
Yes, thank you. I don't have the stats in front of me. This is the first year. Have you done this before?
No.
Okay. I don't have those stats in front of me, but I can tell you that most of our county, Baker County, is livestock. The number one, I guess, conversation that I have with our ranchers, with our livestock owners, is regulations and rules that are coming down on them at the state level and at the federal level. Right now, the biggest one for Baker County is Oregon DEQ TMDL bacteria in our Powder Basin, in our Powder River Basin. That ruling came down last year. We contacted OSU Professor Dr. Ochoa, and he is in water monitoring. He's has a team that has some water monitoring that goes out, that is going on out in Cow Valley area, Ironside area, I guess is the best way to explain where he's at. But we had him look at all the data that Oregon DEQ was giving us from the TMDL bacteria, and he found, like we saw, inconsistent data, outdated data, to where the 3 stations that they based the bacteria levels on, number one, the bacteria level is based on people in water, contact with people. Higher level than it would be for ag, allowance for bacteria. Bacteria being E. coli. We know that that also occurs naturally, but through this process, they blamed cows in streams, and they did that by taking the number of people in our county and the number of cattle, livestock, sheep, all of that in our county, and they said it must be the cattle. The monitoring stations, only one of them out of the 3 that they based it off of, the whole Powder Basin, was out in our Keating Valley where there is ranching going on. The second station was right in Baker City behind our library and close to Campbell Street, which is a major road going through there. A lot of urban influence for that one. The third station that they based the E. coli on was just past the sewer system for the city of Huntington, who at the same time was getting fined for dumping into the water system. Still, they blame cattle in the water. We said, give us 5 years to do DNA testing, proper monitoring throughout the whole basin, and then do your ruling. They said no. They were being forced by special interest groups to get through all of these TMDL bacteria studies, and then they're going to move on to temperature, turbidity, and all of the others. So they went ahead, they put the ruling down on us. Everybody is making all agencies, Baker County, we are making our plans right now for the monitoring. And that is every agency, the Forest Service, BLM, ODF, who else? Soil and Water Conservation District, Powder Basin Watershed Council. There's a bunch of them that will be monitoring. We are tasked with it at the county level for the parks and for our road department. ODOT is part of it. Union County is part of it. So the plans are being made now for the monitoring. ODA has started their public meetings, and the first people that they went to, the first group, is the Baker County Livestock Association. I sat in both of those presentations, I guess it would be. One was just with the Livestock Association, one was a public forum. They gave the same presentation on both. But when it came down to it, Mr. Hibbs indicated that it was up to the ranchers, the livestock owners. What are you going to do? How are you going to change your practices? And what we had to say is that the proper monitoring hasn't been done yet, but even ODA is saying it's the livestock industry. What are you going to do? How are you going to change? We are pushing for DNA. There will be DNA done on at these monitoring stations. The E. coli, the bacteria, could come from waterfowl, natural occurring, many sources. And what I always go back to is our livestock, our producers, our landowners, all of them, they are our first environmentalists. The special interest groups are not. our ranchers only want clean water. They want to do the best, but they don't want to be blamed for it before the monitoring is done. So that's the biggest challenge that we have right now, besides the wolf. And I did see that there was a couple agencies that did support the Senate Bill 777 for the wolf that Commissioner Andrus mentioned. I didn't see ODA as a supporter on that.
Do you recall who?
Oregon Livestock Association, and there was another agency, and I can look that up.
Well, and we can go into it, but many times we do not take as ODA positions on legislation. We can't.
I looked at that. I looked at that. You know, can an Oregon State agency actually take a position?
Unless it's a governor's bill.
Any bills and things like that, and it said yes, that state agencies can take a step, can support, can testify, can do that. Maybe not lobby.
Yeah, we can be asked to give information, but let's hand it over to the expert in answering that.
I'm
so
happy
we can
to
clarify
help answer that. So as a matter of practice, typically agencies do not testify on bills that aren't agency bills or those bills that come from the governor. Occasionally, we can get special dispensation to testify. We are asked to come in on a regular basis to provide information, but we generally don't take positions on bills. And so there were some of them I know that we were monitoring and likely in the room and provided some information, but we don't typically take positions on legislation as it's moving through if it's not our own.
And I understand that. I saw where some others had supported.
And that if you could figure out the other ones as agencies, because the association.
The associations, I should say, yes. And
yeah, associations would definitely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. So if I had enough money, I would look at putting a beef processing plant in, if I could, with a biodigester. That the offset result would be not only fertilizer out of that biodigester off of all of 97% of the waste of the beef processing, but also creating electricity and gas as a byproduct off of that. That would be a goal, and that's something that we definitely have been working on. We are in a beef processing desert, and better on the beef, less stress, just better on everybody. Trying to think of anything. There's so much. So if you have any questions? Do you have any?
On the DNA testing, Union County has advocated that for quite some time because the border that we share, the Powder River, one arm of the Powder River is the border between Union and Baker County. A separate agency than you, not pointing any fingers at you, has what I would consider a CAFO at the headwaters of the Baker Valley. And it is a very, very large elk feeding station, and there are quite a few head in there that they are feeding most of the winter. And kind of like to see what the DNA look like coming into that part of the Powder.
Right, and there's several feeding stations that have the waterways right next to them. So that was a major question and factor in what's causing the bacteria.
And a different subject that she brought up was the processing. So thankful for the work that Oregon Department of Agriculture has worked with the USDA to get local inspections. We've got one here in Union County, and it has been a game changer for producers. We've got producers out of Wallowa County that are feeding in Malheur County and processing here so that they can do direct sales. It's been a really good thing, and I hope that we can get the volume through those plants that it's sustainable for the owners of those plants.
Questions?
I agree with you on the Port of Morrow. That daycare is phenomenal.
It is.
if the money was there. We toured it for the Eastern Oregon Counties Association, and who would think that there'd be a daycare in the middle of all of that industry going on? But it is, and all of those people have that opportunity if they're working out there to have their children right there, and it's a really good situation. We too are short on daycare, housing. Our hospital in 2023 closed the birthing center, ICU. It's St. Alphonsus Trinity, and I just heard on an ad on the way over here that Grandma Hospital has increased 40% in their birthing center, and it's probably due to Baker County. There is a new administrator at the hospital overseeing that. He has said that they're going to bring back ICU, that they're looking at bringing back the birthing center. It is privately owned. It's not community owned, unfortunately, like the Grand Ronde Hospital. We need to get that back. I asked him how many flights a day, because it feels like a MASH unit, and it is. Or how many flights a month. There's at least 30 flights a month, and that doesn't count the ground transport. So every day there's a helicopter coming in and leaving at least once, if not multiple times a day. So that's a big factor on our younger families who were coming here to Baker to build a family and to have their babies born there in Baker. I know my grandson was he was the third to the last before they stopped. And then my second grandbaby was born here. So, and talk about daycare, I have them on Fridays because there isn't enough daycare. So.
And probably the other thing is the relationship with the federal government that we've got. Union County, and I won't speak for Baker County, is 49% federally managed. And when we just did our budget a couple weeks ago, they have 49% of our county's ground, and they account for just over 8.5% of our general fund budget. And the number of mills that have closed in Eastern Oregon, to me, is embarrassing. And no offense, but Baker County does not have an industrial mill. In a heavily forested county, Wallowa County has one. I'm not sure I would call it an industrial mill. They're more of a firewood processor that ships to Fred Meyer. And then there's a lot of small mills, and Senator Nash was able to just get through some legislation to allow locally milled lumber in a small mill, self-certified after they go through a training run by Extension, and then the owner of the house, the builder, and the building inspector have to all be on the same page for them to use it. I look at it as craft milling. We got a lot of pushback from a couple of different sources, but the way I look at it is it's not a lot different than when the Widmer brothers started making beer, and Coors and Budweiser and all those were not very excited about that. So we're very happy that that's gotten through. The governor has signed it, and it could be a really good thing, especially when we've got a fair number of folks in all of our counties in Northeast Oregon that build trophy homes. And I think that craft lumber in a trophy home is fairly fitting.
Yeah, and with our small timber companies and mills, we have small mills. We have one that has a kiln. They are very appreciative of the log scaling bill through OSU and the extension. They feel that that's going to be a huge advantage for them to move that lumber. Talking with them last week, Boise Cascade isn't taking certain amount of logs right now. We have sales that are up for bid on the Wallowa Whitman. One of them is in Union County, and it was not bid on. We have another one that is Town Gulch above Newbridge, Richland area, burned last year, trying to do a salvage on that. They don't expect to get a bidder on that one, and that's a smaller one. So Baker County, yes, we lost Ellingson Mill in 1996. And if we have been told by the Forest Service, we need to find our niche. What is the niche when the chip market is down, when Boise Cascade isn't taking logs? Do we look at post and pole plant? Yes, because our timber now from 1996 to current is a bunch of junk, basically. It's not worth a lot, but being at the American Forestry Resource Council annual meeting in Skamania last month, everybody has to start considering that junk timber. We have to do something with it because our forests are such a mess, and a lot of it you can't get through, and it's just small. To wipe it out, put it in piles, and burn it is unacceptable for the air quality. We had a lot of fires last year, over 400,000 acres, and then that also tied in with Cow Valley Fire and all the rest of them around us. Our ranchers have a lot of fencing to replace. I know that one of the ranchers out in Cow Valley, Ironside, Juniper Mountain, he has miles and miles and miles to replace. When we were in talks post-fire with some of the agencies for getting those fences back up, NRCS said, yes, we'll lend you the money, but you have to do a cultural study before you put that fence back in the same line. And we all know that we don't have enough people to do the cultural studies. And if they find something, that rancher probably isn't going to get their fence back in. Farm Services.
FSA.
Ag West.
It was the Farm Services Agency.
Oh, FSA.
FSA. They came along and they said, okay, we've okayed it to give you the funding without the cultural study. You just can't vary from where the line was. Some of those has been in there for generations in the same line. So that's another thing. And as of I don't know that this one has received any funding as of yet, or any of the others. It's a very slow process for them.
I've got a question on the federal land ownership. Is it all Forest Service here, or there's some BLM too?
There's BLM and Forest Service.
So what's the mix?
In Baker County, it's 30-some% of forest, and what is the percentage of BLM? I don't know that percentage. We have a lot of BLM, unforested BLM.
More than Forest Service?
Yes.
And you're all Forest?
Ours would be just the opposite of that. Yeah, by far a majority is Forest Service ground, and the BLM ground that we do have here tends to be along waterways or railroads, and then also in isolated, what were probably at one point mining claims. But we don't have a ton of BLM. Actually, Baker is the closest BLM office we've got, and that's a branch of Vail. So it's a big piece of real estate they get to cover.
Yes, and that's what the majority was BLM that burned last year. Only the Town Gulch was Wallowa Whitman.
Oh.
The majority was grazing land.
Okay. Right. Any other questions of our commissioners? And, we hope you guys could stick around for a reception too later, but yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm wondering if you could talk about access to fresh produce and just produce production. Is there anything happening here? Are there farmers markets? Are there where are people getting, fresh produce? What's being grown out here besides perhaps potatoes and onions?
I would suggest that we have a thriving farmers market system throughout Northeast Oregon, and they stagger the days that those producers, if they want, they can travel to the other areas. Some of it's organic, some of it's traditional. In my neighborhood, we've got a couple of pretty good sized, I would call them hoop houses, and to extend the season, and a lot of the agriculture programs here do a really good job with ornamentals, a lot of flowers, a lot of petunias, things like that, and really they have a tendency to push each other pretty hard on the quality and quantity both on those, and it's been fun to watch that over the years.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we have a farmers market in Baker City and out in Halfway, so very strong farmers market. And then we also do have a barn out towards the mountains, towards the Elkhorns outside of Baker City that is locally grown vegetables, fruits, and your dairies and all of that. So yeah, we do have access. And then we have also another farm that comes in and sets up on Campbell Street, and they're there all summer with their produce.
Great, thank you.
Good. Yes.
Chad Allen for the record. If you get to stay around during the reception, in Tillamook, we dealt with the TMDLs and the water quality monitoring 30 years ago, and had gone through all the exact things that you guys are dealing with now.
Yeah.
And it's been a long journey, and they're still doing monitoring to this day continuously. But the DNA science-based stuff is really, 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 really critical.
Yes.
To get a relationship with all the parties that are interested in the issue, that you're looking for common goal, and none of this pointing fingers on it's the cattle, it's this, it's that. And that if that type of approach is a little effective, but sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it's you're just playing defense, and it's really frustrating because all the burden's only placed on what people's opinions are. Mm-hmm. And being in agriculture, we're always extremely science-based. And I know for us, it was interesting when we did get the opportunity and the research came around with the DNA stuff, and you really started to see where all the contributions are coming from. Mm-hmm. And there is a natural level of fecal coliform in the first place, but it's the recreational water standards is the ones that we follow. Mm-hmm. And in Tillamook being really wet, a lot of rivers, but it's been a marathon in terms of where we've been and where we've gotten to, and we're at a point where there's a lot of enthusiasm around the data that they're collecting now, mm-hmm. and it sort of unites us, I guess, instead of divides us.
Yeah.
I mean, there is some hope, I guess I would say. You're in the middle of it.
Yeah, and there's a bit of unknown. We said, what if we don't meet that criteria in 5 years? What happens? There's no answer. That's a good question. We'll get back to you. There's a lot of unknowns, and until we get that DNA, until we get that monitoring in place, we won't know. Nobody, and yes, we don't want fingers pointed.
And a similar water quality question that's been coming up quite a bit among counties. Fortunately, Baker County is not part of it, but the FEMA BIOP, and the commissioners started out with Commissioner Yamamoto and now Commissioner Scars. They've really taken the lead on that and provided all of the counties that are under that FEMA BIOP with some really strong information, and very appreciative of their work. And we're hopeful that between our Congressman Bentz and the current administration, we can get some movement on getting that FEMA BIOP revoked.
Yeah, I was on a regional team in Tillamook with Commissioner Yamamoto on the FEMA BIOP, and was one of the landowners in the first lawsuit that was filed years ago, and then withdrew or determined to be invalid because there hasn't been any damages yet because the law hadn't gone into enact. But yeah, I could speak hours.
Looking forward to visiting with you.
Why don't we have our commissioners still stay at the table, if you don't mind? Because I think, given our timing was kind of challenged in light of the fact that this is check-in day for animals at the livestock show. So, so we have though with us Wade Binneman, and we would like Wade to maybe just come up here and join us, because there may be some other questions that kind of cross-reference to that Wade will bring up. So Wade, you're representing the wheat industry here, and why don't you do a little bit of a self-introduction, and then we can kick off with your issues and concerns, and maybe we can mix and match. Have I missed anybody who may have walked in that I did not note? Okay, so this is it, gang. So great, thank you. If you can stay, commissioners, is that fine for you to stay longer? Okay, great, super, thank you.
Okay, so I'm Wade Bingaman. I farm locally here, a seventh generation farm here in Eastern Oregon, north end of this valley around Imbler. Our farm kind of surrounds the town of Imbler. If you've ever been through there to Wallowa Lake, you've probably driven through parts of our farm. So I'm the immediate past president of the Oregon Wheat Growers League. So in the past few years, I have traveled quite a bit to Salem and Washington, D.C., lobbying on behalf of farmers in Oregon wheat. So I guess just to start, I've got a few notes here. It's a really challenging time in agriculture right now. We're facing high fertilizer, chemicals, high cost of production, and low crop prices. So there's a lot of financial stress. Locally here, I've seen more consolidation in the past 2 years of some smaller farms that haven't been able to make it, and have some other families have taken over some of their farmland and started renting it. But I've seen more change in the last 2 years than I have in the last 20, and I don't think that it's over yet. I think we're going to be seeing more of that, just because we're pretty diversified here. We're lucky that we can grow a wide variety of different crops, like Paul mentioned, but there's really no bright spot right now. Our grass seed has always been pretty stable, even during the housing crisis in 2008. The grass seed stayed pretty strong for the type of grass that we grow here, and it's really struggling. Wheat prices are struggling. Peppermint is something we're not able to grow anymore because of the verticillium wilt and some other pressures on that crop. So we're trying new things. Camelina was something that Paul mentioned that's used for fuel. That's really its only use. It's being trucked to Bakersfield, California, and being used for diesel fuel and aviation fuel. But that parent company is facing some financial pressures and declared bankruptcy. So we're a little concerned whether that's a crop that is really going to pan out and be something that we can grow here, or might be something that just kind of fizzles out. So, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask as you're going. As far as Oregon wheat, export capacity and trade is a big deal. You probably are aware 90% of the wheat grown in Oregon is exported to foreign markets, and we're really dependent on those foreign markets. So we have concerns over some of the tariffs. We have some concerns over just shipping, getting wheat to the ports. There's pressures on the dams and looking at those. There's pressures on maintenance of the river system to get our wheat to market. I tell people the Oregon wheat, or wheat in general, there's a price put out that's the Portland price, which is, let's say, $6. It costs a farmer here in this valley $1.20 to get it to the port of Portland. And that comes out of the farmer's pockets. That's not paid by anybody else. So, any kind of an increase in that, if there's changes in the transportation system and getting our wheat to Portland, we're the ones that are going to bear the burden of that cost. So I think it's really critical that our infrastructure, is a priority. So Eric Orem is also a past president of the Oregon Wheat Growers League, and I know he's really involved with the wheat industry. So if you want to chime in on any of that, feel free. So
go ahead, Director.
Eric Orem for the record. Yeah, thanks, Wade. I And just for reference, in our area, so the Port of Morrow, it's 80 cents off there. So there's a 40 cents differentiation between here and just over the hill.
Yeah.
And I would agree. I mean, cost of production right now versus market prices, and unfortunately, we live in an area where that's the only thing we can grow is wheat, and it is, and since last year, been at about a break even, unfortunately. And so when it comes to issues with transportation, you know, the Idaho producers probably have an uphill run with the Snake River system getting their wheat out of Lewiston, and they're even at a higher cost per bushel than what we are here or on the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another concern that we have talked a lot about in Salem is land use. We're seeing a lot of acres of wheat production being converted to solar panels, and there's that pressure, and then there's the pressure, you know, just on farmland in general around urban areas. But in particular, solar panels. You know, there's really large solar farms that are being built in Central Oregon, and a lot of that is going in wheat producing areas. So we have concerns. I mean, it's my stance personally is it's also, you know, a private property issue, because farmers are struggling, and if they can, you know, make some more money on solar panels or a portion of their farm, I see the right to do that. But I think that it's really critical that we have something in place that makes the rules really clear and not site specific, but across the state of Oregon, that says, you know, these are the rules if these criteria have to be met, and not circumvent those based on political agendas. So, but that's something that we're taking up a lot of discussion. So we recently had a strategic planning with Oregon Wheat and the Oregon Wheat Commission, and one thing that came out of that meeting is trying to find more markets domestically for our product. You know, being dependent on 90% of it going out of the country, you know, kind of puts us in a position that we don't want to be in sometimes. So I know that that's a challenge, and it's going to, you know, be a really years-long effort. But I think that's something that we need to look at, is a more domestic use for the wheat product that we grow, soft white winter wheat here in the Pacific Northwest. So. On a positive note, legislation was just passed to designate a wheat day in Oregon. So Oregon Wheat Growers League was the first grower organization in the entire country to be formed on behalf of wheat growers, and it was formed in 1926 in Pendleton. And so we worked with the state legislature to get an Oregon Wheat Day, and in 2026 we'll have our 100th year anniversary. So I think that's a pretty neat thing for the industry. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Question back on transportation, Elon Miller for the record. My assumption is, and this may be just a dumb question, but that it's all going on ship. All the wheat is basically, from an export standpoint, is all on ship. Yeah. And I guess a question would be, you know, in the unlikely scenario of that being less of an option, has anybody done any economic analysis on what that trade-off is, let alone potential environmental and all with
And are you
fuels?
talking on getting on a ship to across the ocean, or are you getting on a ship to get to
From here to get to Portland?
Yeah, there has been a lot of study done on how many trucks, for instance, it would take to offset that, which I think it's very clear we do not have the infrastructure for our roads to take that over. I mean, it's per barge. I want to say it's like 1,000 1,200 or 1,400 semi-trailer loads it would take to replace one barge. And the same with the rail. It's, 300 or 400 cars to replace one barge. So, from a economic standpoint, the sooner it can get on the water, the cheaper it is. And, ours goes to McNary and gets on ships there to get to the Port of Portland. And I think Eric's probably similar. Just, we truck it the least amount that we can. It costs us about, I want to say it's about 60 cents to get it from here to McNary, which isn't that far, and then 60 cents to get it from McNary to the Port of Portland.
That would be a difference to show. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so really no rail, no trucking to get it to basically the international port to.
Yeah, there are a lot of rail cars that get to the Port of Portland. A lot of that grain is actually coming from the Midwest and just staying on rail.
Okay.
Most of the Pacific Northwest soft white winter wheat gets on barges.
Okay, great. Thank you. Director Orm?
Eric Orm, just a comment to add to that. So there's already a bottleneck in the Columbia Gorge for rail. So adding more rail to it would be nearly impossible. That's at the Port of Morrow. Morrow County Grain Growers Co-op built a train unloading facility to bring in train loads, unit train loads from the Midwest, transload them onto barges to get them onto the river. And that was part of a Connect Oregon grant. It's been a little slow to take off, but that's because looking forward, when there's river closures and it just shuts down all the barge traffic too. So with repairs and maintenance. But looking forward, the idea was with the bottleneck that we could still get grains down the river through barge.
Through barge. Great. Thank you.
Madam Chair, may I?
Yes.
Wade brought up a couple of talking points that I had missed. And the first, and is very close to my heart, is Dr. Myers from Oregon State and the AgriStress hotline that she's got. And anything you can do as a board to promote that would be very welcome. We are not immune to that here in Northeast Oregon, and some counties it's even worse than others. And any help you could give, I would appreciate that. The other thing is I want to talk about the local producers that are self-regulating on isolation on crops. And in the extension office, they've got a map. They drop pins. They talk about the acreages, and Wade could probably expand on that a little bit more. But I think it really goes to show that the producers in this area want to do the right thing, want to work together, and make sure that they've got that the product that they're producing to be right. And I think that's really something that they should be commended for. The other is the field burning program we've got in Union County. I would challenge any other region in the state of Oregon. No offense to anybody, but it's been really successful. We have a solid program. We've got great working relationships with fire departments and DEQ, and the farmers really do a great job of making sure that they're minimizing the impact to air quality with their burning. On the point of land use, I would agree that there's a lot of threats to farmland, but at the same time we're also hamstringing producers by having opportunities to make a living, or not even a living, supplement their living doing something else. I know of at least 3 wedding venues that are under a conditional use permit in Union County that are all ag-based, all farm families and very successful farm families. And the regulations tend to be a bit stifling on that and continue to get more and more so. I can't believe I forgot to talk about this, and I think you're going to hear about it on Friday, is the Eastern Oregon University Ag Entrepreneur Program. Wow. It's a unicorn, and I think it is a really great program and producing some students that are going to really change regionally the face of agriculture. Dr. Mueller, and just last week they were able to hire a second professor for that with the size of that program. So pretty proud of that. And then I think my good friend, Senator Nash would be displeased if I didn't mention that we're about to have a state steak, and that is the T-bone. And I think the only thing that it is missing at this point in the legislation is the governor's signature. And Senator Nash wanted to make sure that there was something to sit next to the potato on a plate. So Senator Hansel got that through, and I'm very proud of that in the region.
Well, that's great. That's great. Do you want to?
Just a couple of things. You have mentioned several things, and I think you talked about the Ag Water Quality Program. If there's an opportunity for ODA to engage more in the local community and help make those connections, we're happy to do that. You have a local, one of our division directors, Casey Prentice, is out of Ontario, and it's close by, is part of our leadership team. And I'm just moving west. I started in Ontario earlier this week doing visits, and we really want to find some more ways to engage locally here in Eastern Oregon. And so please reach out. I think the other thing Wade mentioned, talking about domestic marketing, our economic development program has traditionally looked at the international markets, and that's where the opportunity has been. But we're doing some more focusing now and looking at more opportunities domestically. And so if there's an opportunity to weigh in with that team or the team to weigh in with Wheat League, we are happy to do that. I think we'll talk about a little bit tomorrow. Oregon had a presence at the National Restaurant Association trade show in Chicago a week and a half ago. First time we had been there in some time. I think it was a great success. We had 6 booths, 6 companies. Carla was there, and they raved about the opportunity. And so I think there is a lot of thought right now in terms of how do we make lemonade out of lemons with taking on opportunities in the domestic market and trying to identify more of those to grow.
Right. Thank you, Lisa. This is springing it on Jake Sievert, who is in the audience. And Jake, you're part of the Oregon Cattlemen. And would you like to come up here and join us too? You may have a few words. And while Jake is coming up, I want to mention something. I had a chance. We, as a Board of Ag, met in Salem at our last meeting, and so a few of us had a chance to meet with Senator Nash. And fun story, it was in 1980 that I first stepped foot in northeastern Oregon, and I was I was a national FFA officer way back when, but I was the speaker at the Enterprise chapter. Guess who was chapter president, who had us at their 50th chapter? It was Senator Nash. We both discovered that at the meeting. So anyway, it's a small world for a little girl from Arizona way back then. So Jake, would you like to say a few words on behalf of cattlemen and other issues here locally for us?
I am involved with the Oregon Cattlemen's Association at the state level. I'm the vice chair on the Animal Health and ID program. Also sit as the current Union County Cattlemen's Association president as well. Just some things that I think that have been on our radar, obviously, is the wolf issue, and we're glad to see some traction legislatively to help us there, and as Commissioner Andrews mentioned as well, just trying to get that companion bill 985 as well. Half the battle, in my opinion, was 777 being passed, but without the funding there, as ODA knows, the funding is pretty constricted with the current compensation programs that we have currently. I think a lot of it too, we look at regulation of our public lands and grazing opportunities there. A lot of red tape regulations coming over the last 30 years, obviously. Monitoring of the stubble height. Definitely there's been a big push on taking in some monitoring sites and keeping track of our grazing patterns there and how that can affect us negatively as far as stocking rates on certain grazing allotments there. I wish I could be in the, I guess I don't wish I could be in the same boat as the commodities. Cattle is really good right now. It's really, really good. The best it's ever been, in my opinion. A lot of the factors there, though, comes from a national outlook, with cattle numbers being as low as they have been historically, I believe, in the last 50 years, but don't quote me on that. And there has been no indication that we're going to see any change in that market unless something drastic, disease outbreak or anything, happens, just due to slow replacement heifers being kept at the time being. So far, the domestic supply has stayed strong through this somewhat inflation era that we have been in the last 3-4 years. So that has been very positive with keeping our domestic strong. And I think, man, Wade, I'm just going to go against you every time. But, you know, there is some pros and cons to the tariffs there. And I think that'll drive to a stronger domestic demand that we can hold just for the country of origin labeling. I think that is, speaking with a lot of producers that in our organization, that is something that we really strive towards. We're pretty proud of the safe beef that we raise here locally and nationally, compared to other countries that the beef is being imported from. So we look at continued strength in our domestic markets. And traceability. Traceability's been a big one as well. Oregon Cattlemen's view on that is we're not fully against the use of electronic tags, EIDs or whatnot. I think the big concern there with cattlemen is kind of being mandated to use that. We're good with voluntary actions on that, and so far I have seen quite a few producers sway that way as a management tool. I think as with anything agriculturally related, they're afraid of information leak to the public. Maybe cattle herd size, location of cattle, stipulations such as that. But as far as I feel, I think we align with ODA as far as disease traceability. It would cut that process down dramatically, and we'd be able to isolate a lot quicker to the source and where we may need to quarantine at a quicker rate than we have currently been using in the last 30, 40 years. So the opportunity for young farmers and ranchers to get involved in the business is nil to none, as you guys probably know as well. So we're always looking for ways to recruit young producers into the Cattlemen's Association, whether that be from an industry standpoint or from the production side of things. Production side of things, as you know, is very challenging. Land prices is taken that to where a guy basically has to operate on a lease basis. So it takes a little more risk, some variability in expenses there. So we're always looking for ways to promote getting younger producers. First generation, me, myself, I'm a first generation cattle operation. Now I'm not very big. Obviously I hold a full-time job, but as we see that nationally, that's kind of the way the market has been nationally. You see that average herd size being around 40 head, I believe, was the last number that I looked at. So You see a lot of that in the Midwest, down in Texas. People utilize that as they buy the property, and it's a second source of income.
Commissioner Witham, you had mentioned the processing, and maybe just now that we have someone from Cattlemen's, just your perspective, Jake, on the work that ODA has done as far as processing is concerned for meat products.
Yeah, we're obviously, I think what we've seen through the COVID era is an increase in basically a farm to table relationship with our customer. We've seen an increase in ranchers offering that local option to local customer, dramatically increased. That's one of the ways that I market my beef cattle. So I think it would be, I'm fully supportive of ODA's current inspection program, or helping with the USDA inspection program. I would like to see just a little more expanse on that. A local processing facility to handle even not just custom cut, but like Commissioner Witham has stated with the processing facility in Baker, not only would that help us local cattlemen give us another option or another way to market our cattle, but you look at the economic value that it will bring to the local communities of employment and some economic growth there. Currently, we do have a sale yard here in LaGrande that handles quite a few cattle for our side of the state. That's one way to market cattle. We have the addition of CSI down there out of Kuna, Idaho, that a lot of people are utilizing that option as well. But without those options locally, it would be challenging to market our cattle. Yeah.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
I would like to add to that. We do have a feedlot in Baker County. 15,000 capacity is what they were going for in 2021. I don't know what capacity they are at right now. I'd really like to see them have a biodigester as well, because you can process all of that waste and produce fertilizer and electricity and gas as well. But it is a local push for that. And then we were also in talks with Blue Mountain Community College, because in Pendleton they have animal husbandry program, and it takes it all the way from the birth to the kill and the butchery of the cattle. We have asked BMCC to possibly partner with us to because when they brought on the program, they had more sign up than what they had the capacity for. It surprised them. So we were offering to hopefully maybe partner with them to where we would have that learning ability there with the plant. And then we also, when we think about something like this and labor, we do have prison in Powder River prison in Baker. It is an Oregon State prison, and through that there was also talks about a program for some of the inmates who are transferring out for skill to have them trained in that skill as well. So it's kind of a big package that we're trying to put together for that.
Great. Okay, any other questions or any closing comments? We're getting close to our reception time, but we can take a quick break in between. But any other comments before we would break, or question? Oh, Director Boyer.
Barbara Boyer for the record. Last week I was in Condon and with the Soil and Water Conservation Commission, and we toured a ranch that had the invisible fence.
Yes.
They got an OWEB grant for it, the Gilliam County Soil and Water Conservation District. And I toured and we saw it in practice, and it was really fascinating. I don't know if you guys you don't have to rebuild the fence, which you were talking about.
True.
I know the towers are about $10,000, which I know is the expense, but to know that there was a grant out there that got these 10 towers. It might be something you guys want to look into.
And we were looking at that through our Wolf Depredation Compensation Committee. We don't have any towers. Forest Service was talking about some towers for some of their allotments. We do have about 50 of the GPS tags out to ranchers in the Keating Valley area. That's where we have a lot of the wolf action, wolf depredations. And this is the first year that we've done that. That is thanks to a grant from Western Landowners, or through Western Landowners Association or Alliance. It's a CIG federal grant, just to try. And I know that Ellie with Western Landowners had multiple counties that she was testing those GPS. When they send them out, they turn them on. So you have to have them very targeted and ready to go out to the livestock owners before they turn. Our goal was this spring before they turned them out. Some of our sheep producers out there in the Keating Valley, we're putting them on their guard dogs that are out there guarding against the wolves so they can keep track of them. So both of those are a great possibility.
There has been some work done locally as well. I know they've done some trial work out here with a couple producers out here on Five Points Creek. So as you're leaving LaGrande, headed into the canyon, it'd be all to the right-hand side, all the way basically to the Spring Creek and Summit area of testing these out, because obviously the technology has grown in the last 2 years. When I was down at NCBA in Florida a couple years ago, there were several vendors, but they were mostly concerned with the mountainous areas that we have and how many towers it would take to reach into some canyons and whatnot. But I think that technology in just 2 years has dramatically changed. So who knows what we'll have in 2 years. But I know that there has been success with these trials that they've used. A ranch out of the Heppner area, is it Lightning Bolt, I think, has used them as well. And actually, during the fires of last year, the forest fighters, or firefighters, I can't remember which department or agency it was, actually asked the ranchers that had those vents, ear tags, to bring cattle around a structure and hold them there for 3 days. And they actually used them as a
fuel reduction.
Fuel reduction, yes, exactly. But the funny part is when they went to move the cattle out of there, because the fire was then imposing a danger on the livestock as well, what they didn't realize was it took 24 hours to update that ear tag to the boundaries. They finally did get the cattle through. The fencing took a lot of dog work and a lot of pressure to get them out of that zone. But yeah, there is some learning curves to it. But yeah, I think in the future, and I kind of viewed that as a great opportunity with the fires that we had last year down there in Cow Valley and Durkee and whatnot, where there's not so many trees, but a lot of rocky ground to build a lot of fence on. And there's an opportunity there to utilize this type of technology. And if you look at the cost of a mile of fence now, I think we're approaching $35,000 in materials and labor for a mile of fence. Well, towers, they are expensive, but I think overall the return on investment would be something to look at this point now.
And these particular towers were mobile. They were on trailers, so they move them around. Yeah, it was really fascinating. Yep. So, and you don't buy the collar; you can only lease them.
Really?
Oh, yes. Which I thought was interesting. At least that's what we were told. So it was interesting.
So one of the things, and I think it goes along with this, is Union County has 3,700 acres just north of town here. Mount Emily Recreation Area, roughly half of it is dedicated to motorized and the other half is non-motorized, mountain biking, horseback, hiking, cross-country skiing in the wintertime. Our fences were in really poor repair, and we were not having really good relationship with our neighbors, and board action removed grazing from that area. And my time is very limited in office. I have 18 months left, and before I get out, I would like to either get cattle back in there with the collars, or take one of the bands of sheep that's out on the grass seed fields and do some really intense targeted grazing to supplement the forest restoration work we've done. And if you're needing a place to hike or get out and get some fresh air, Mount Emily, right outside of town.
On that note, anyway, I'd like to just thank our panel for the time and volunteer to the panel at the end as well. But thank you very, very much for joining us this evening. And I believe the reception is in the, at least I saw tables in the garden area. So it's just around here, right around the building to my right. Thanks. And board, there is a sheet of paper that we need to have you sign for transportation tomorrow to get you from place to place. And is it going around? Sherry, did you see it again? Yeah, it's kind of like a permission slip. It's like your mom and dad are allowing you to, hey, here it is. There we go. So why don't you, yeah, let's go ahead and all we need is your signature beside your name on it. So great. Thank you.
Sorry.
Everybody mixes them up too.
Got some sort of like branding, like where's that marketing? Drive through with my
Came 84.
Accusing like false advertising.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Arlington, you can head south or just past Arlington.
Everything else.
There's one for exit.
Yeah.
Right down Highway 74.